Hmm. Hmm. Oh, here we are. We're live, baby.
Oh yeah, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. I got a smoothie in my hand, so it's going to be a good Friday.
What kind of smoothie is that?
It's got some berries. It's got some protein. It's loaded up with athletic greens. So who knows what could happen after I down this bad boy? Could be a great day. What's going on with you, Caleb?
Yeah, man. Not much. It's Friday. My brother's in town from Texas at a convention in Orlando, so I'm gonna visit him this weekend. And yeah, man, just another Friday, bro. Another Friday here doing the live training.
That's right. I mean,
how about you, bro? How's everything? Do you feel very settled into your Nashville home?
We're back. We're back in action. It's been a wild week. You ever have those weeks where it's just like one thing after the other, and you're like, something's conspiring against me here, because just like getting blindsided from either side over and over. It's one of those weeks. Yeah. But the beauty of it, I talked about this morning. I put a video up. My lows now are higher than my highs were 5 years ago, right? So as long as I can keep that perspective, the low points are still really good. And it's still life, and there's no reason to not enjoy it every step of the way, even when things don't.
Right.
That's my mentality.
It's good mentality, bro. Positivity.
That's right.
And positivity is something that you need to be a great advertiser. And
that's right.
That's right. So yes, for those of you that are joining us now and anyone that's watching the recording, we are diving in today to talk about what it takes to be the top 1% of advertisers. Like, what does it take to actually be the best, do really great work, and get results? And we got a really cool presentation we're going to share today. So pumped to get into it, man.
And forewarning here, if you don't care about being the best at what you do, then this isn't going to be for you. I mean, it's that simple. There's enough people in the world that want to do mediocre jobs. You can just keep doing that if that's your thing. But for those of you that are like, I kind of want to be the best, I only want to do it if I'm going to be the best, then it's for you.
Yep.
We're going to talk through it.
Yeah.
So good deal. If you're watching the live training, thank you. We love you. Welcome. If you're watching the replay, I'm sure you've already skipped this whole part, but we're going to jump into it here in about 30 seconds. We are live now on YouTube, on Facebook, in our group. So if you're on YouTube or you're on the public Facebook page, hop on over to our free group. That's where we go live primarily, and that's where we answer any questions that you guys have. That's where we will literally dive into any advertising related question that you might have, just to provide value. So absolutely free. Yeah. All right, good deal. Let's hop into it, Caleb.
Sweet, yeah, let's do it. So we've got an incredible presentation here. Actually made with a really, really cool tool that Dakota you just showed, which was pretty dope.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have this document. This is a document that we created a while ago, and we're like, you know what? Let's present this bad boy. And I was like, ooh, actually, I have just the thing. It's called gamma.app. So if you guys haven't seen this, I'm gonna, here's the behind the scenes, right? As we just took this document, integrated it with Gamma app, and they created a presentation for us. So that's what we're going through today. Pretty awesome.
So cool. Literally, like I watched Dakota do this, guys. He literally just took the Google Doc, plugged it into this AI tool, and it made an entire slide deck based off of the Google Doc. So pretty dang neat, guys. AI is getting cooler and cooler.
That's right. Yeah. And it did it in like 1 minute. As you can see, I made this 8 minutes ago. So it's like, you ever hit a deadline that you don't feel like you can hit? Well, AI can help you.
Heck yeah.
So here we go. So we're talking about the key to being a top advertiser. We call it, top 1%. I had to throw Don Draper over here because when you think of the best advertisers, it's hard not to think of Mad Men and sort of the way that he thought of things. And so that's kind of what we're focusing on today. Not as much like what buttons do we push in the ad accounts and how do we, duplicate things out the right way. Those are like, pieces of being a good advertiser, but the main thing is much more mindset related than anything else, right? And so the advertising industry is intensely competitive, right? So what we're talking about today is what sets the top 1% from the rest. How do you become a top 1% advertiser?
Yes.
So first things
Also,
first.
one other thing before you even move to the next slide, the other thing I think that's huge here is if you are a business owner and you're watching this, this is also a really great presentation to understand what to look for if you're looking for a media buyer, right? If you're looking for someone to come in and do ads for you or be on your marketing team, this is going to kind of run through the different like brain types that you'll come across and what to kind of look out for if you want to get somebody that's really good. So
absolutely. So that's kind of the first piece here. The way we think about, digital media buying, we're not talking about media buying of old where it's like bidding and calling and trying to get space on billboards and things like that. This is a different world, right? This is digital media buying. This is how do you become a good digital marketer all around, right? And so we kind of think of it in terms of two brain types. And some people are very much one side or the other of this Venn diagram, and they're still good marketers, but they're more specialized. Other people possess both of these things. And if you really want to be a top 1% marketer, you really have to understand both sides of this Venn diagram. So on the left side, Caleb, why don't you walk us through the creative side of media buying?
Yeah. So when you talk to someone that is more on the creative side of media buying, right, they have a more non-conventional approach to life. So meaning they're not as like methodical with how they do things. They're a little bit more kind of like a little bit more all over the place. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way, but just their approach to life is kind of like go with the flow. You know what I mean? Like we're just going to see what happens. We're going to, go with the flow. They're more sporadic. They're more excitable. So, these are the types of people that you talk about an idea and they get really pumped up and they start brainstorming, right? And like that's just kind of how they operate whenever you throw projects their way. They're a little bit less organized. They're a little bit less organized, not more or less.
They have more of less organization.
Yeah. They're less organized than most, right? So, which, isn't like necessarily the worst thing in the world when you're on the creative side, because you kind of want to have some ideas that come a little bit out of nowhere, and then they're also like fascinated by the way people think, right? So these are the kind of people that love entering the brain of somebody else and kind of thinking through what's going to, be attractive to them or what's going to like allure them, right, in the marketing world. So that's kind of the more creative side. And then Dakota, you can walk us through analytical.
Yeah. And these are kind of like the personality traits. So it's not necessarily as much like what do they do functionally. I think that's important to note because, that's a different thing. But like if you found a creative marketer, right, someone who was really far on the left side, you want them in charge of like ad copy and, ideas for video creative and, kind of just those new sort of like methods of acquiring customers.
Right.
So that's kind of how when they get excited about ad copy or a new marketing angle, they're definitely on the creative side, right? Yeah. They're not as much on this other side, which is the analytical side. So on the analytical side, we really have like a whole another subset of people who I think of as more executors. These people, you give them a plan and they're going to get it done, right? And they're going to do it the right way, and they're going to make sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. So, they love numbers, they love spreadsheets, they love trends. They can understand quickly what those trends are telling them about the marketing campaigns, right? The throughput of a funnel or the cost per acquisition or, the cost per lead, whatever it is. They have a good finger on the pulse of that. They love organization and structure. They like to know what they're supposed to be doing at any given time. They want things more black and white. Typically, and they're pretty methodical and slow in their approach. So one way to stress out somebody on the analytical side is just to like, throw a curveball at them and say, hey, we're doing it this way now. They're going to be like, wait a second. We have a whole process here, right? Whereas creative people love that. Hey, we're doing it this way now. They're going to be like, all right, cool, let's do it. So it's very much different sides of the spectrum. But if you have both of these, you're kind of in this middle, section of the circle, which is creative problem solving, right? So this creative problem solving, that's really where you hit that top 1% of marketers. They have the brain for the creative side. They have the brain for the analytical side, and they're able to piece them both together and do both.
Yep, exactly. Because honestly, if you have one of these and not the other, it's going to be really hard for you to see big wins, right? Because you might have a really great creative idea and you launch it, but then you totally jack up the campaign, right? Because you weren't watching budgets properly, you weren't optimizing properly, and then the campaign fails. Or on the flip side, you might have someone who's crushing the numbers, like they're super methodical, they know exactly where spend is at for each ad set or whatever, but their copy sucks. And so then the creative just ends up the campaign doesn't work, right? So you kind of really have to be able to mesh these two worlds together. And that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. And I think too, like, so we're talking about being a top 1% advertiser. So if you're someone that's trying to be this person, right, that's one thing. But if you're hiring for media buyers, like what we typically do, like the last time we hired media buyers here at Ad Class, we hired one person who we felt was more creative and one person who we felt was more analytical for the same job, because now we know that we're filling the gaps of both without forcing a person to be something that they're not, right? So exactly. I really do believe there are ways to become more creative if you're analytical. There are ways to become more analytical if you're creative, but sometimes you're really forcing the issue if you're trying to be both and you're not supposed to be, right? So if given the choice, hire both.
Yeah.
So awesome. Caleb, I'll let you walk through this one.
Yeah. So basically, great media buyers don't rely on set formulas for success. They use their problem-solving abilities to test, learn, and optimize campaigns. So basically what we mean by that is like, you're going to have a formula, right? Like you're going to have your guidelines and your principles of how to run your ads. But at the same time, that's always going to kind of change a little bit, right? There's no like silver bullet or, one size fits all approach. So you're going to want to have guidelines, and these we're going to roll through that now. But really, honestly, like the best media buyers are people who can kind of like adapt and pivot, right? So first off, you want to basically identify the problem. So you're going to take the time to examine the issues that you're facing with your campaigns. You're going to seek out solutions, right? So brainstorm solutions, test various variations, and seek out expert advice. If you've got that available to you, which hint, hint, you can join our free Facebook group. You do. If you're watching this, you do. And then you want to actually like optimize. So try new things, learn from the results, use what you've learned to continue optimizing your campaigns, right? So this is kind of like a typical like mindset of somebody who's coming in and they're not just kind of like, well, someone else is going to figure it out for me, right? Yeah. They're actually jumping in and they're problem solving. And I think that's what actually makes a really good media buyer.
Yeah. And I think the reason for that is that we're talking about platforms that change literally every day. Right. So what worked on Facebook ads a year ago doesn't work anymore. And the only way to figure out what does work anymore is this third step, right? To play and to optimize. Like ultimately, if you're not doing this, if you're not constantly in this cycle of figuring out what the problem is, seeking solutions and testing, like then you're going to be left behind, right? You're going to be doing stuff that worked 5 years ago that doesn't work anymore. And you're going to lose clients, lose money, right? Overall. So that's kind of what we're talking through here. Sweet. So creativity. This is so going back to like this slide here. If you're more on the analytical side, this is some stuff that can help you become more creative, right? So if we come, we had more stuff down here too. So to become more analytical for creative minds and to become more creative for analytical minds is here, right? So basically, if you're creative and you want to be more analytical, you can incorporate more analysis, right? You can do things like trying to figure out Excel, take some Excel courses. You can look through, a task management solution or something that helps you stay on track. And you can obviously get better at just comparing data. For analytical people that want to be more creative, it's all about brainstorming, researching competitors, right? There's a lot of copying that goes into this. You see what other people are doing that's creative and cool, and you kind of take your own spin and do it your way. Crazy ideas, right? And start thinking about psychology, right? What makes people tick overall. Coming back down into the creative mindset, these are ways to kind of foster that creativity that we found really effective for us. So obviously, advertising basically is just creativity manifested, right? I mean, like when we're talking about the best ads of all time, they're super off the wall and creative. That's why I love this industry so much. And so it's super important that you try to put yourself, number one, outside of your comfort zone. So, what this allows you to do basically is not really get stuck in what you think works, right? My favorite thing ever is when someone asks me like, hey, have you tried this before? And has it worked? Because I'm like, if yes, I'll tell them. But a lot of the times they'll be like, no, I've never tried it. Totally down to test it. Right? Because ultimately we do not know what works until we step out of our comfort zone and actually test it. The worst thing you can do as a media buyer is be like, nah, that's not going to work. Because ultimately there's a good chance that it might if you do it right.
Right. Yep.
Step 2 here is collaborate. this is pretty simple. Use your resources effectively. Find other people that are doing what you're doing or doing what you want to be doing is really the best way. And figure out ways to add value to them so that they can kind of share what they're doing with you. And then for creativity, honestly, this one is super underrated. But like if you're feeling like you're not creative, you can't get the juices flowing, whatever it is, like just take a break. Go take a
step
walk,
away.
you know?
Refresh your mind. Yeah, there's sometimes where like before I go into a creative session, I literally will just like go on a quick walk around the neighborhood, don't bring my phone, and I'm just kind of like thinking, and then I'll come back, and it can really help a lot to just kind of remove yourself from all the screens for a second and just like think.
Absolutely. So to like that, basically all that stuff is if you're analytical and you're trying to be creative, here's some good ways. If you're creative and you're trying to become analytical though, basically like the pieces that you really want to get good at, the pieces that are going to give you the highest return on the analytical side is data analysis and interpretation of data, right? Like really at the root of it, you don't need to be good at math. You don't need to be good at science. You don't need to really have like some great level of computation, awareness. You don't need to be a programmer, right? Like we're not talking about that. All we're talking about is if we show you a set of numbers or a chart, can you figure out what the heck's going on, right? Can you figure out like the trends? If that's the case, then you're going to do fine. And so ways to do that, obviously, number one, you want to track your KPIs. You want to actually know what numbers you're shooting for, right? You want to have goals set with those numbers, and you want to be able to have an effective way to track them. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know if you're successful or not. Number two, this one is a little bit harder if you're not running other offers. But once again, you're in the ad class group. So ask away if you have questions. But this is basically, you need to be able to compare and contrast what other people are doing, what competitors are doing, and sort of do a market analysis, right? Like, are you competing and doing a good job, or are you losing to the competition, right? And so that's sort of the analytical side there. And then obviously this is both creative and analytical, but a huge thing is basically just being informed. Understand what changes are happening right now with the ad platforms, with how people are choosing to advertise on those platforms, and just basically if you're aware of those things, you're already beating 50, 60, 70% of other advertisers because they're just in their own little cave and they're not looking at that stuff, right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
So yes, sir. Walk us through the status quo, Caleb. Walk us through what you don't want to be.
Yeah. So successful media buyers never get complacent. So here's some behaviors to avoid if you want to be in the top 1%. So resisting changes to campaign strategy, right? You don't want to be the person that's like just kind of just doing what everybody else is doing, right? And like, okay, so let's say that you're working on a team, right? And you've got people that are like, hey, we want to try out this new thing or whatever. And you're kind of like, no, we got to do it this way, right? And you're always just kind of like being that person. Then like, no one's going to want to work with you. Number one, it's not fun to be that person on the team, but at the same time, you're not allowing yourself to try new things, which we constantly are always testing, right? So I would say like probably 20% of our budgets in almost every account that we work with, we're always trying to test something, right? We're always trying to test something that maybe hasn't been proven yet, but it's maybe a little bit cutting edge. Maybe it's just a different thought process. But anyways, point being is you don't want to be the person that's always just resisting change. Okay. Number two is you don't want to get comfortable with existing success. So this is like a huge one actually for media buyers that we'll see is like, they see that an account is like maybe like starting to level off, right? It's doing well. You're seeing ROAS there, but because there's success, you just stop innovating, right? It's like a thing where it's like, okay, well, it's doing good, right? So let's just let it coast. And it's like, okay, well, that's cool that it's doing well, but like, what if we took 10%, 20% of this budget and we kept on trying new things? Because the reality is almost always you could do better, right? Like you can almost always do better. So it's good to just keep on.
And if you're not innovating, if you're comfortable with the campaigns and you're just letting them run, in 6 months when those campaigns are no longer working, which is pretty inevitable, you're not going to have a backup plan, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then the other big thing is just like, if you do that, right, and if you're just kind of letting things coast, sometimes those types of media buyers, they just completely stop paying attention to stuff, right? And so I can tell you, I know Dakota, you have horror stories of this as well, but like, people will come to us and be like, hey, can you like audit our account? Can you check it out and just see what's going on? And sometimes we'll step in and we'll look and we'll see that like accounts have just kind of been left like no one's paying attention to anything, right? And they've just kind of like completely just avoided, what actually should be getting taken care of, right? And so, so you want to kind of avoid these sort of scenarios, right? So if you're an advertiser, if you're looking for one, don't pick somebody that's doing any of these things. And if you're interviewing them, ask questions to see if you can get these sorts of answers to come up, right? And so just some things to avoid.
Absolutely. Okay, so what if you're the person that can do both, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if you have a little bit of the analytics side and a little bit of the creative side? For me personally, like I'm really proud of my ability to do both here, because I would say I'm a little bit more creative than I am analytical, but I pushed and pushed and pushed until I understood that analytics side a lot. Because for me, it's extremely important to understand what's going on, right? So one way to kind of understand which side you're on, one really quick like assessment that you could do for yourself is like think back to school, right? And think about what classes you enjoyed the most. For me, I hated math, right? Math was always the bane of my existence, and I loved language. I loved English, Spanish. I loved all of those, and even when I took the ACT, I basically like aced the English portion, but the math portion was pretty rough, right? That's a really quick indicator that I was more creative than I was analytical. So on that spectrum, you're either like, on one side or the other, or maybe you're really good at everything, whatever it is. But if you are good at both, there's one thing that like you kind of have to focus on, which is how do I find balance?
Yep.
Right? How do I find the balance between creative and analytical, and what's the right balance to have? So great media buyers, they aim to achieve a balance between creative and analytic mindsets. Basically, here are some things that you can do to get balance. Number one, develop your analytic skills. We already talked about how to do that, right? So master data analysis, master tracking, master KPIs, research market trends, develop your creative skills, which is experiment with language, right? This is a big one. So write a lot of copy. I cannot stress that enough.
That's a huge one, dude.
Write copy every day, copy other people's copy, go to the old, like go to like copy swipe file. I don't know if you guys have ever seen swipe file, swipefile.com. Here's a great place. Go to places like this, right? Type in like advertorials or whatever, find something that is new for you. Here you go. Old ads, right? You should hear what they're saying about Vega. I literally used to go in and just copy these word for word and write them, because these are things that will make you think more creatively, right? So go to websites like this, or find guys like good copywriters from back in the day, Gary Halpert as an example. He's got an old website here that literally is just all of his copy that you can find, right? And even just the words of this little squeeze page are like, wow, dear friend, I have no idea how you got to this website. Right? Boom, 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 boom. Call to action, absolutely free. Everything is beautiful here. These are the guys who invented copywriting, right? If you go back to back. So if you're trying to get more creative, learn from the best. Go find people. Experiment with language, right? Use AI a little bit. See if that can help you. Try different approaches. And honestly, like just push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Exactly.
And then finally, once you're kind of feeling like you're in a good spot with those, find your sweet spot. Find what makes you, you, right? People want to work with you because you're you, not because you're somebody else. So you're constantly, like for me, I'm constantly trying to figure out how much of the creativity do I want to bring in? How much of the analytics? What makes people want to work with us at Ad Class, right? Yeah. It's that we're balanced in both of those things. So your balance is going to be different from mine. Caleb's is different from mine, right? Everybody's is a little bit different. Finding yours is important.
Good stuff, dude.
Yes, sir. All right. So now that you know what it takes, it's time to take action. Let's do this thing. Get out there. Okay. Get out there and become, the world's best media buyer.
Yeah, I think like the action step here is like figure out which one you are, right? You probably have a good idea already, but take some time to really think through, like, are you more creative or are you more analytical? And then understand that you should be working on both, right? So if you are analytical, really take some time and do what Dakota just said, right? Go write copy, but you kind of got to figure out like which one you are, and then dive in, make sure that you can be the best advertiser that you can be.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Any last minute words?
No, yeah, just excited that it's Friday, excited that we had a really great podcast this week too. So if you guys haven't been checking out our podcast, definitely go on Spotify, check it out, go to the YouTube channel. We upload it there as well. We've been having a really, really fun time recording those, and hopefully you guys are enjoying them. We definitely have fun. We laugh a lot there. So if you want some laughs, go check out our podcast. And of course, if you're already in the Facebook group, you should be, or if you're not in the Facebook group, you should be. And if you're already in there, then, ask us questions. If you're stuck on anything, please, just reach out and get some help. We want to help you. Like, that is the whole reason the group exists. We want to make sure that we're providing value to you guys. So thanks for joining us on this beautiful Friday. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and enjoy your weekends, guys.
Peace.
Peace.